Morning students, welcome to TYBBA General Semester 5 at Anand Commerce College, Anand. These online lectures are being delivered as per the guidance of Government of Gujarat Education Department. Myself, Professor Devang Trivedi, shall engage you for the subject Business Taxation 1 as per the syllabus prescribed by Sardar Patel University, Vallabh Vidyanagar. Business Taxation 1 is having subject code number UM05CBBA 22. Last time we discussed the introductory part about the Income Tax Act, and we had taken two definitions, namely person and SSC. Now under the second part of the first unit of Business Taxation 1, let's begin with the remaining definitions. The first such definition is assessment year. An assessment year is defined as a period of 12 months commencing on 1st April and ending on 31st March. It is a year in which the income of the previous year is to be assessed. The current assessment year is 2020-21, which commenced on 1st April 2019 and ended on 31st March 2020. That is, income of previous year 2019-20 will be assessed during this assessment year. In some countries, it is also called a tax year. It is also known as, somewhere in some countries, financial year. It is always a fixed period of 12 months without a change of date. That is 1st April to 31st March. During the assessment year, the income of the previous year, that is 2019-20, is assessed according to the rates of tax prescribed by the Finance Bill of 2020 presented in the form of annual budget. Now this assessment year here that we have described is as per section 2 subsection 9. We have to make it very clear that during the current assessment year, the income of the previous year is assessed. Likewise, the ongoing assessment year is 2021-22. That is, whatever income that is generated during this financial year, that is the ongoing financial year, which has begun from 1st April 2020 and shall end on 31st March 2021, will be assessed during the assessment year of 2021-22 as per the provisions of Finance Bill 2020-21. Now the next definition is previous year. I have given you a reference while discussing about the assessment year about the previous year. It is interesting to note that income assessed during the current year is that earned in the previous year. Previous year is also known as the accounting year or financial year or income year according to the section 3 of the Income Tax Act. Income earned by individual during the previous year, that in our illustration, income earned during 1920, that is the previous year, is taxable in the immediately following assessment year of 2020-21 at the rates applicable for the assessment year 2020-21. Similarly, income earned during the previous year, that is the current financial year of 2020-21, becomes the previous year for the next assessment year, that is for the assessment year 2021-22. It is compulsory for all assessees to present their accounts for the year ended 31st March every year for the income tax purposes. Be clear that the assessee is free to keep any accounting year for any other purpose, but he should produce his account for income tax purpose as per the Income Tax Act 1961 for this purpose for the year ending on 31st March every year. So there is no relaxation so far as the definition of previous year and assessment year is concerned for the income tax purposes for any assessee, whether it is a individual assessee or a non-individual assessee, maybe a corporate or an HUF or a partnership firm, whosoever category he may fall, but his previous year and account and assessment year for the purpose of preparation and presentation of the account for calculating and paying the income tax is same. Clear? Okay, now let's move to the next definition, and that is income. Now all of you must have many doubts in your mind that what is income for the purpose of income tax. See, though the income tax is tax on incomes, the act does not clearly define what is income. You may wonder that act does not define what is the income, then how do we calculate as an assessee the tax? Yes, now here is the catch. Income means some monetary returns periodically received from some definite source. See, it's a monetary return received periodically from a definite source. The definition of income given in section 2 subsection 24 of Income Tax Act 1961 is inclusive and not exhaustive. Be clear, it is inclusive but not exhaustive. It says that certain items are included in the term income. According to section 2 subsection 24, income includes. Now what does it include? Number 1, profit and gains of business or profession. Any profit or gains from any business or profession or vocation. Second, dividend. The dividend income received from Indian companies by resident shareholders is tax free, but now any income of dividend exceeding rupees 7,500, or if it is changed by a introduction of limit in the finance bill, then a TDS at a rate of 7.5% if you have given your PAN card number, or at a rate of 20% if you have not given your PAN card, will be deducted from any dividend payment over and above that limit. Number 3. Voluntary contribution received by a charitable, religious trust, or university, or educational institution, or hospital, or electoral created wholly or partly for charitable or religious purposes, or by any institution established wholly or partly for any purposes. Number 4. The value of any perquisites or profit in lieu of salary taxable under section 17. 5. In addition, the allowances paid to SSC for performing his duties, or special allowances to compensate him for the increased cost of living or benefits, are also included in income. City compensatory allowance or dearness allowance, that is DA, paid to the employees is treated as income. Number 6. The value of any benefit or perquisites, that is whether convertible into money or not, obtained from a company either by a director or by a person who has substantial interest in the company, or by a relative of the director or of such person. 7. Any sum paid by such company for an obligation which would have been payable by the director or such other person if the company had not made this payment. Number 8. The value of any benefit or perquisites, whether convertible into money or not, to a representative SSC. Number 9. The value of any benefit or perquisites taxable as income under section 28, 41 and 59 arising from business or profession. 10. Any capital gain chargeable under section 45. 11. The profit and gains under section 44 of any business of insurance carried on by a mutual insurance company or by cooperative society. The profits and gains of any business of banking, including providing credit facility, it is very specific, carried on by a cooperative society with its members. 13. Income of any business of banking carried on by a cooperative society with its member. Next, any winnings from lotteries, crossword puzzles, race, including horse race, card games, and other games of any sort, or from gambling or betting of any form. Next, any sum received by the SAC from his employees as contribution to Employees Provident Fund, that is EPF, Superannuation Fund, ESI, or any other welfare fund. Number 15, amount of keyman insurance policy, that is including bonus, received by employer. 16, gift of money and property as defined under section 56 subsection 2 7 exceeding rupees 50,000 is taxable as income in few instances. Seventeen, the value of gifted property referred to in section 56 subsection 2 subsection 7a is also taxable. 18, any consideration received for issue of shares as exceeds its fair market value as defined under section 56(2) subsection 7b. And last, any sum of money referred in section 56(2) subsection 9. Now see, in order to clearly grasp the meaning of term income, we must understand certain important points. They are as under. Number 1, an illegal income is also taxable like legal income. Thus, income from smuggling is also taxable. Second, income received with some sort of regularity is also taxable. 3, income should have been derived from definite source. 4, income may be received in cash or in kind, that is, say for example, rent-free accommodation given to an employee by the employer is taxable. 5, it is not only the income actually received that is taxed, but any income that has accrued is also liable to tax. 6, if there is any dispute regarding title of income, the person receiving the income will have to pay tax. 7, income should have been received from an outside source. A person cannot make profit by trading with himself. Income should be real and not fictional. 8, personal gift. Certain gifts of personal nature as stated in the list of exceptions under section 56(2) subsection 7 inserted by the Finance Act 2009 are not treated as income. Gift, that is any sum of money exceeding rupees 50,000 in aggregate received without consideration by an individual or HUF from any person or persons other than a relative, is considered income. 9, lump sum receipt is also liable to tax. For example, arrears of bonus received in lump sum is income and taxable as a part of salary. 10. Mere relief or reimbursement of expenses is not treated as income. For instance, reimbursement of actual conveyance expenses to an employee is not an income. 11. Same income cannot be taxed twice. 12. Income arising from wasting assets by way of royalty is treated as income. 13. Reward given to a finder of a lost article does not attract any tax. 14. When appropriation of payment between capital and interest is not made in the books, the income tax department is entitled to treat the payment as applicable to the outstanding interest and assess it as revenue income. 15. Pin money received by wife for her dress, personal expenses and small savings out of money received from her husband for meeting household expenses is not treated as her income. 16. A revenue receipt is taxable while a capital receipt is generally exempted from tax unless it is expressly taxable. 17. Award received by a professional sportsman is liable to tax. An award received by a non-professional sportsman is taxable as gift in excess of rupees 50,000. 18. The term income also includes loss, that is a negative income. So from the foregoing discussion, the income and its adjoining expression, it is very clear how the income is to be treated by an assessee for the purpose of the income tax. Now let's move to the next definition, and that is a gross total income. Gross total income is the total of taxable income under all the 5 heads before making deduction under section 80C to 80U. As per section 14, income of a person is computed under various heads, and before aggregating this income, the losses under various heads can be set off against the income so computed. Unabsorbed depreciation, carried forward losses, etc. are deducted. The resultant figure finally obtained is known as gross total income. When deduction under section 80C to 80U are made, we get total income. This deduction under section 80 include deduction for amount paid under mediclaim, insurance policies, donations, etc. The next definition is total income. Total income is the income of assessee from all sources on which he has to pay income tax. According to section 2 subsection 45, total income means the total amount of income referred to in section 5 computed in the manner laid down in this act. Number 1, determine total taxable income according to section 5. That is, the total income of any previous year of a person who is resident of India includes all income from whatever sources derived, which is received in India or which is deemed to be received in India, or which accrues or arises to him in India, or which is deemed to accrue or arise to him in India, accrues or arises to him outside India. Then, in case of a person who is not ordinarily resident in India, the income which accrues or arises to him outside India shall not so included unless it is derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India. એટલે અહીંયા તમારે ધ્યાન રાખવાનું છે કે any income to an non-resident cannot be included if it is not derived in India. Then the total income of a person who is a non-resident includes all income from whichever source derived, which is received in India or which is deemed to be received in India by him, which accrues or arises to him in India or which is deemed to accrue or arise to him in India. So be clear about the inclusion and exclusion. Then the second is determine total income tax payable by him on total taxable income at the prescribed rate applicable to the relevant previous year. From the total income tax so payable, we have to deduct relief, rebate as per the provisions of section 86 and 89. Then the education says currently say 3%, secondary and higher education says of 1%, so total 4% as per the current finance bill, and the surcharge if any thereon will have to be added. Number 3, where the total income payable including surcharge and both the education says, higher education says, is more than the advance tax paid or the tax deducted at source, the balance is the net tax payable by an assessee. Interest under section 23(4)(a) and 23(4)(b) and 23(4)(c) will also have to be added to it. And finally, where the total tax payable including surcharge and both the education says and higher education says is less than the advance tax and TDS, the excess will be refunded to the assessee. So this is how we have to calculate the total income and just have to arrive at an estimate that what will be the amount that will be refunded in case if he has paid excess, or if there is any amount that he has to pay together with the penalty. Clear? So we have seen the definition of assessment year, previous year, then income, gross income and total income. Now the last definition is agriculture income. Very tricky type of income, that is an agriculture income from the tax point of view, because you know in India agriculture income is exempted from tax. No tax is to be charged or no tax is to be payable by the farmer for any income that he has generated as defined in the Income Tax Act as agriculture income. Income from agriculture is exempted, as I told you, and it has to be exempted because Indian Parliament has no power under the Constitution to levy tax on agriculture income. Only the state legislatures have the power to impose any tax on agriculture income. Agriculture income was totally exempted from income tax. However, since 1973, agriculture income is included in the total income of the SSC for the limited purpose of determining the rate applicable to the taxable income. Now, to be classified as agriculture income, the following two conditions must be satisfied. Number one, the income should have been derived from land situated in India. And second, the land should have been used for agriculture purposes. That means agriculture income is defined in section 2, subsection IA 1A. Accordingly, agriculture income means any rent or revenue. It must be derived from land. Land must be situated in India and land must have been used for the agriculture purpose. Second, income derived from such land, that is, income must be derived by agriculture or cultivation, or income must be derived from processing of agriculture produce, and income must be derived by sale of agriculture produced, that is, by the cultivator or by receiver of rent in kind. And the third is income derived from building, that is farmhouse, where the building must be occupied by the cultivator. The income must be on the land or in the immediate vicinity of the land. The cultivator must require it as a dwelling house, storehouse, or other outbuilding. And the land must be assessed to land revenue or local rates. If it is not assessed to land revenue or local rate, then it must be situated outside urban areas, as explained above. So this is known as an agriculture income. Now see, from the foregoing discussion, for agriculture income, it is very clear that rent for agricultural rent received from tenant or subtenant, income from growing of flowers, income from sale of replanted trees, interest received by partner or his capital from an agriculture firm, share of profit or salary received by partner from a firm engaged in agriculture operations, compensation received from insurance company due to damage of tea gardens from hailstorms, fees collected for following and allowing cattle to graze on forest lands of spontaneous growth, income derived by growing special quality of grass required for creating golf course, income derived from sale of saplings or seedlings grown in nursery shall be deemed to be agriculture income as per explanation 3 under section 2 subsection 1b. Income from growing mulberry leaves, income derived from sale of seeds, and income from growing of bamboos. All these income are purely treated as an agriculture income, and as per the Income Tax Act 1961, these income are not taxed in India. Now you see, there are certain income which is also treated as partly agriculture income. There are certain income which are neither wholly agriculture nor wholly business income. They contain some element of agriculture income defined in this act, and hence they are treated as partly agriculture income. They are, number one, a part of income from such sugar factories which grow their own sugarcane on their farms. As per Rule 7 of Income Tax Rules 1962, income earned from sale of any product other than tea, coffee or rubber grown and manufactured in partially agriculture income. Second, where agriculture product is ordinarily sellable in the market in either its raw form or after application of any process to make it marketable, the average market price shall be deducted from the final product's sale value to find out non-agriculture income. And last but not least, where agriculture product is not ordinarily sellable in the market either in the raw form or after application of any process to make it marketable, following expenses etc. shall be deducted from the final product's sales value to find out non-agriculture income. They are the expenses of cultivation, then second, the land revenue or rent paid for the area on which it is grown, and third, any other amount allowed by the ITO which may represent a reasonable profit. So this is also a brief understanding about partly agriculture income. So see, while talking about the agriculture income, you have to make it very sure that agriculture income is not taxable in India. But see, since 1973, it is clubbed with the income for only the rate purpose, for determining the rate that is applicable for the calculation of taxes. But on the agriculture income, the SSC has not to pay any amount of tax. So be clear that on agriculture income, the Parliament has no power by the Constitution to tax them and collect any taxes from them. For partly agriculture income, I have already told you that how it is to be accounted for and what is to be deducted from the income. So see, we have seen broadly all these definitions, that is the assessment year, then previous year, we have seen income, then gross total income, agriculture income for the purpose of calculation of income tax.